someone who's come up that I'd love to get your opinion on is Sam Sulek. And he's obviously taking the world by storm, really, in terms of content. But one thing I was thinking of was the generation that we're more so in. So I'm 25. I believe you're 28 or 27. Sorry,
28.
28.
28. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to make sure. But when I was kind of the phenomenon at the time for me, I just missed the Zyzz era. I think he died in August 2011, so I would have been 12 at the time. I think you would have caught that kind of craze a little bit,
Yeah.
But for me, it was Jeff Side, the second coming of Zyzz, and I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, right, so people talking about Sam Sulek, but I was like, he is almost sitting in the place that Jeff Side and Zyzz were in a respect. And I was thinking, I was like, what's a worse influence in a way? Where, to Zyzz's credit, right? So you could take the negative side of Zyzz and Jeff's side and say, right, these lads are just going around to festivals, munching a load of pills in a field and just getting off their head and being shredded and this kind of thing. And that certainly was a factor in what they were doing, even if it wasn't that explicit. But in a way, a lot of people weren't going and doing that. A lot of the positive side of that movement was be social, get out there, talk to people. Don't be a sad cunt. Basically, was kind of the thing. But with Sam Sulek, what I kind of see, I'm like, damn, are we going to get an ever increasing amount of young lads getting onto steroids very early? Are they kind of going to just dismiss any sort of a social life or kind of a relationship, or maybe seeing a bit of the world, or developing other areas of themselves? Have you watched a lot of Sam Sulek? Have you kind of developed any sort of, have you kind of learned a bit more about kind of what he's been up to? And yeah, I guess kind of the influence that he's having. I mean, I wonder, like, is he this generation's kind of version of Zyzz in a sense?
You actually made a fascinating point there that I hadn't thought of. I thought of, obviously, is this going to influence people to go on steroids, whatever, like that. For me, that's always been around. Like, I mean, if you're into bodybuilding, like, it's always going to be there. But I'll come back to that point, because what you said, it was really interesting. I hadn't really thought of is the pro-social versus anti-social nature. Because that's actually a really good point, is that back in when I started lifting and when you would have started lifting and getting into fitness, all the influencers were very much pro-social in nature. In that, like you say, Jeff Side, Zyzz, lots of other people, even the people that were like really into bodybuilding, they were still like, I don't know, really outgoing, and like Steve Cook or someone like that, for example. He was one of my idols at the time. But it was all, he seemed to have a very integrated life, whereas with someone like maybe Sam Sulek, it is very kind of more like that recluse bodybuilder archetype where I do me, that's all that matters. And all the memes I've seen kind of created in relation to his content have been like that, like when she says XYZ and he just starts talking about his biceps or something, and they're hilarious. Of course, it's very funny from a just a meme perspective, but that is a sentiment that I have seen quite a bit, is like, ignore other responsibilities, just get jacked, ignore relationships, just get jacked, and just kind of live like that. So I don't know, I'd need to let that stew for a while, I think, but that is something that's definitely interesting, is that kind of that lone wolf recluse mentality, that maybe people will idolize that in some way, particularly maybe those guys who aren't social already. Maybe instead of trying to develop those social skills and be a sick cunt, so to speak, that they just won't, and they'll just retreat, kind of like the men going their own way and MGTOW movement type of thing. So yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've been thinking about a lot, because I used to watch Jeff Side a lot, and I remember one of my friends, when we were after the gym, he wasn't as into the gym. He was more into hurling and football and that kind of thing. And he was coming after me. He was like, "Oh, I've seen those Zyzz videos. The guy was a muppet kind of thing." And I was like, "What? No, Zyzz." I was very offended by it. But then you get a kind of an outside perspective on it when you're seeing Sam Sulek and you're maybe not in the age demographic where the bulk of his audience would be. And you're kind of like, oh man, yeah, like I can kind of see different perspectives on this. And it made me think of all of that. But I think that wouldn't have had the best influence on me, because I'm extroverted, but I'm like quite avoidant. Like I don't like it's like a weird, kind of a strange mix. And so there's a part of that that really appeals to me, of being a recluse. So I'm actually almost a bit grateful in a way that those were a bit more of the influences, because it was like, no, like go out and don't internally negotiate to get what you want from the world, like externally negotiate and go out and transact and do your thing. It's sort of, in a way, Zyzz and Jordan Peterson have some overlap in terms of their Venn diagrams in a way, which is a very strange thing to say. But there is that element of go out in, with all the shortcomings that you may have, go out and give it a stab and you will be a better man for it. Everything. And that's kind of the thing that would worry me a wee bit more, is just the reclusive element of it, where it's just live in the metaverse and make your online life matter more than your actual life. I kind of see that. I'm like, that's frightening.
That is a fantastic point, particularly in light of potentially where technology is going, metaverse, etc. But yeah, because previously people have asked me about Sam Sulek. I get asked about him all the time, but generally people just ask like, what do you think about him bringing a more kind of bro style to lifting back and this type of thing? And I'm like, I don't care, man. It's pretty positive. Like, most people just need to lift and eat healthier, and that's fantastic, But yeah, that's an angle I hadn't thought of. I had thought of obviously the fact that he's absolutely ginormous at a very young age, and now people will want to be ginormous at a young age, which requires obviously lots of extra assistance. There's other positive elements to him, like I think the fact that maybe he is kind of like a humble guy that isn't the most good looking. It's probably good to have those people rather than just like the Jeff Sides and Steve Cooks, who are clearly genetically superior to us. Like, I think I was probably thinking of those positive elements. I also think that from what I gather, he's in school or in university doing engineering and hasn't dropped out despite his fame. He's continuing to finish the degree. I thought that warranted respect. I was like, yeah, I like that. Because I know myself, even with my very small following and very small business, I know how tempting it is to just drop it all and just do your thing. So I respected that for sure. So yeah, I think probably a bit of a mixed character. I don't think him himself is in any way malicious. I think he's seems like a legend guy and a very positive influence overall in what he's doing. But like you say, how people read into that and how they apply it to their own lives, I think that's something that could be interesting to observe.
Yeah, no, and I like that, just to round that off in a sense where like I actually love watching him. I think he's an absolute legend, and I think
I only see the short clips, so I don't really know that much about him. But they're the bits I've seen, and it's often like he's just got a pretty funny sense of humor. Like,
it's literally like just being a fly on the wall with one of the boys, really. Yeah. And it's almost like those old David Lade vlogs where he's going around with his two mates, like Dylan and Quinn, except you are just it's like just you and Sam kind of on the thing, and he's a bit more awkward, but in a very lovable way. So yeah, that's the point around off, I suppose. But